With the announcements of Raids 4, The Fractured Archive, Jagex came out and asked people for suggestions on what kind of rewards they'd like to see. And with a little help from my lovely assistant, we've pulled some of the best ones together for a video on them all. Now, we did reach out to each of the creators of these suggestions, and asked if it was okay to use their work for this video, and it was nice to get such a positive response from everyone. And I will have the creators' details on screen when showing their items, as well as links to their respective socials in the description and the original posting of their work. Now starting off, I've got to plug my own idea. You might have seen it on the 2007 Scape subreddit at some point after the initial reveal of the raid about 2 months ago during the Winter Summit. Those being the Guthixian Gauntlets. Well, the other name I was sitting on was the Balance Bringers. But after posting, a lot of people said they should have just been called the Fists of Guthix, and I will say, it was right on the tip of my tongue when making them, but it sounded a little too on the nose. But these are something that I drew up on my iPad while watching the summit, and well, it sort of speaks for itself. The Guthix-inspired raid with the archive, the gone but not forgotten minigame Fist of Guthix, a set of brawler-style gauntlets that I did later learn after somebody pointed out that there is a similar kind of weapon in RS3 known as the Goliath gloves. Feels as though they could add something a little more refreshing and new to what we have right now when it comes to melee weapons, as the ones we currently have starting to become a little bit stale, it feels. But that's enough of my idea. What about some of the suggestions that we found on the subreddit or on Twitter or everywhere else that we found them? The first one comes from Reddit user Howard526, and this is the Ring of Remembrance. A common ring drop similar to that of the Lightbearer from TOA, but with the ability to cast a single spell from any spellbook while using a single charge. Sitting somewhere between the Seer's Ring and the Magus Ring, it wouldn't dethrone the Magus, but it would be a lot of utility in quite a lot of situations. On the Ancient Spellbook, for instance, doing a barrage task and want to alch something. Use a charge on the ring to swap to the normal spellbook to allow a quick alch. Training Mahogany Homes on the normal spellbook for your teleports, and you want to use NPC contact. Sounds pretty cozy to me. Being able to use the Twin Flame Staff for something like your first Zulrah kill for the diary, while also having access to the Cure Me spell. Maybe a little fiddly and probably not as sort of realistic, but still an option nonetheless. A more niche option being, say you're on a Slayer task, and you're killing Bloodvelds. You're bursting, and they drop an Unsouled Head, an Alch, and Ashes in the same kill. Being able to cast Demonic Offering to sacrifice the Ashes, High Alch to be able to use the drops for the GP, and reanimating the head, all thanks to one ring, does sound pretty overpowered, right? Well, in that situation you'd be carrying Soul, Wrath, Fire, Nature, Chaos, Water, Death, and Blood runes. That being 7 runes, you could cut this down by using Steam runes, of course, and bringing a charged Bryo Staff, but you'd be sacrificing a lot of space, and for that kind of utility, it does feel like a pretty fair trade-off. Overall, it seems like a pretty fun item to have with the level of utility that it would have the opportunity to bring. The next one comes from a user called Tino Scoom, who gave us 2 suggestions, a crush weapon and a new best-in-slot prayer armor. The Cage of Jas being a new best-in-slot crush weapon that, well, you guessed it, it's a prototype of the Stone of Jas, sealed inside of an object resembling a censer. It's a 2-handed weapon that converts prayer bonus into additional strength. Now, Tenno does say that they're kind of ripping off the Sunlight Spear with this, but it sounds fantastic either way, and taking existing content to make new stuff isn't a bad thing. With the spec bar being replaced with Catalytic Energy, with each hit building 1 charge, and once you hit 20, well, you can use the special attack, Fulmination. Swing the Cage of Jas and slam it into the floor, causing a 3x3 shockwave which deals typeless damage, which increases by 3% per prayer bonus of the player. And, well, you might think there should be a drawback, right? Well, there is, and it would damage the player for an example being 10 hit points. You're simply smashing a prototype Elder Artifact into the floor. Who knows what kind of repercussions that could have? Speaking of prayer bonus, the armor set proposed by Tino as well, the Edict and Forces set, a theoretical set of robes that may have been worn by some of Guthix's most devout followers. Now, stat-wise, these would be best-in-slot prayer gear, but also have defense stats to boot. Sitting slightly below Dragon Armor, they would give us a new tier of prayer armor above what we have right now, that being either Proselyte or Elite Black, which are all but the same, just with the Elite Black armor stats being a little lower, but both having identical prayer stats. The Edict Enforcer, however, would take that base full set prayer bonus of 18 and bump it up to 30, as well as giving defense bonuses, which would allow you to just be that little bit stronger when dealing with attacks that would have prayer penetration. Overall, I actually really do love this idea of a Battle Monk style set. With it being tied into the edicts too, and having possible alternative styles, it could give a similar opportunity for possible kits from the raid, to change the style, or even to just give it a more unique look, similar to what we have with Ancestral. But I kind of really like the idea of a high-tier prayer set, which would be more usable than what we currently have. I don't know, let me know what you think down below, because this is one that I actually do really like. Next on the list is something that might honestly split people pretty down the middle, and that's the Blessing of the Void by Soft Yellow 5231. A nice, quick and simple one. A blessing that when equipped would act as a void set piece, allowing the player to replace one of their void pieces without losing the set bonus, be it replacing your gloves with conflictions for the mage set, ferocious for the melee set, and ranged. Well, you would want your quiver on, so you wouldn't be using it with range most likely, but using a quiver or a Ava's device with ranged already does give you the bonus benefit of ammo reduction. Overall, a pretty fun little unique item that wouldn't change too much, but would allow for some pretty funky extra max hits without being too crazy of an upgrade. Now, next is quite possibly one of my favourite suggestions to date, and this absolute beauty was bestowed upon to us by IsNotRetro. I give you the Colossal Salamander, aka Sally. It's exactly what it sounds like, a big-ass salamander that you look absolutely insane holding on to. Ammo? Well, you'll feed it other salamanders. And attack styles? How about 3 individual special attacks instead? We've got all 3 combat styles covered too. For melee, we have Gluttonous Gorge, a strength-based attack which increases maximum hit and accuracy equal by total energy spent. A non-hit restores hit points equal to damage dealt, disregarding limits. And if it's a killing blow, you'll restore half of your energy spent too. Ranged, we have Bile Blast, launch a projectile which leaves behind a 5x5 pool of acidic bile, lasting an additional tick for every energy point spent. The bile pool deals rapid damage and reduces defense if all targets hit by it. And magic? Well, how about fire breathing? Focusing its breath into rapid 1-tick, long-range, low-accuracy attacks, applying a strong burn for every successful hit for every 5% energy spent. Attack for 1 additional tick. Now, this is just a big ol' silly Lizzie, but maybe, just maybe, if it got enough exposure and love, we could get it one day. Probably not for this raid, but maybe one day. And is it silly? God, yes. But do I want to run around holding a giant salamander blasting things? Well, yeah. Why would you not? Now, the next one, it also comes from IsNotRetro, and this one is a little bit more serious. This is the Bandos Branchbow, a powerful, slow-firing bow that uses javelins as ammo instead of arrows, requiring 80 strength and 82 range to use, and comes with a passive effect which adds strength bonus to your range strength. Intended to serve as a fang equivalent for ranged, and acting as a heavy ranged weapon, offering a leg up in damage from current crossbows. On average, the bow would compete with the Bowfer, offering an alternative between which takes the lead depending on the encounter, and offering an alternative path of progression for players pulling away slightly from the current, just, you know, bow for everything. It also comes with a nice simple special attack, costing 25% spec, and increasing accuracy by 50% as well as damage by 10. The base stats of the weapon would be 130 range attack, 30 range strength, and 4 prayer bonus, and you'd be attacking at either 6 tick on rapid or 7 on accurate and long range, with the latter boosting your ranged up to 10 tiles from the base range of 8. It'd also give javelins another use outside of just ballistas, which sounds quite nice actually, and that's not just because I have a heavy ballista in my looting bag right now. I just love the idea of things getting more uses that in almost most cases are never used anywhere. Having a more optional progression route in the mid-game would also just kind of be nice. The next one comes from 50 Shakes of Way, and it covers something a lot of people have talked about, and that's the speed of Mega Res. How about something that can be both fast and slow instead. Bringing us the Fractured Chain, a two-handed mega rare which can hit at different speeds depending on the style you use it in. Rapid? Well, you'll have one tile range at the speed of 2 to 3 ticks, but you're gonna be pretty weak with it. Accurate gives you a 2-tile range at a speed of 4 ticks and will become a little stronger. And long range, a range of 3 tiles at a speed of 5 to 6 ticks, and being the strongest style it could be used in. And it does come with a passive, and that's that it's going to do additional reduced damage to any NPC on tiles the chain goes through. Similar to how the Scythe would hit based on size, this will instead hit based on any tiles it passes over before it reaches its target. It's a fun take on a melee weapon that also does include a longer reach than what we currently have for anything in the melee section. And from the same person again, we also have another one. The Archivist's Balance, which is a double-ended spear of sorts, being slash-based, that could possibly have one or both blades replaced to change it from slash to crush. When attacking, it would always double hit the target in front of you, and with independent accuracy and damage rolls. And of course there's a fancy special with this one as well. If there are any NPCs adjacent to you, you'll deal reduced spin damage to all NPCs on these tiles, but will also slightly reduce your main damage hit. Both are insanely unique weapons and interesting too, and if you have any thoughts about any of these, just go down below and you can check the original posts, because honestly, both are pretty interesting proposals. On to the next one though, and we've got the Guthixian Carnyx by Legend Arts, and you might recognize the name if you've seen a lot of RuneScape inspired art on Discord, Twitter, or Reddit, and he's honestly just insanely talented, and on screen are just a couple of his uploads. But back to the Carnyx. Designed around an ancient Celtic warhorn which shares the same name, originally intended to wake Guthix, but now in a broken state and due to its insane size has been repurposed as a two-handed crush weapon. No stats given for it, but a proposed special attack which would deal additional damage to poisoned enemies. A nice quick one here, but again, all Legends details will be down below. From a simple one to a pretty wild one, next we have two more suggestions, this time from Zuhaar. And the first thing we'll go over is the Armour, dropped in a standard form with stats that would sit somewhere between Justiciar and Inquisitor, but when enhanced would gain the offensive stats of Inquisitors along with the defense stats of Justiciar, giving you what would become some of the tankiest armor in the game. Now, the way to enhance it might put a sour taste in your mouth if you're an Iron, but it would require Justian Inquisitor, which means doing both Theatre of Blood and Nightmare, and then breaking down said armor sets into fragments, which would then be combined into balance fragments, where you'd then need a total of 195 of these to enhance your new shiny armor. And I know the idea of getting all this is probably a bit much for most people, so a little alternative I was thinking of for this could be the armor itself being dropped in its base form, and additional fragments as possible loot from the raid as well, which could instead be used in a similar way that crystal shards are used to corrupt a bowfer or splinters to bless the quiver. Either way, yet another really well put together proposal. And the final one's just another quick one from myself again, that being Imbued Godbooks. The idea for this one came from pretty much the introduction of the archives, and getting a book-related reward of some sort would feel pretty thematic, not to mention breathe a little life back into the Godbooks, which haven't been touched in over 20 years, while not accounting for the Book of Lore, War, and Darkness, which were added back in 2014, which was still over 12 years ago. So I took the original Godbook, which have started to feel a little plain, and gave them a little sprucing up, and a more updated look, with their respective god-aligned insignia being the most prominent change. Now the drop itself would come in the form of a torn page, similar to that of the torn prayer scroll from Chambers, maybe even with the same drop rate of 2 in 1 in 33, and then this page could be taken to a specific NPC to attune it to a specific god, and then placed into the book to imbue it. The NPCs I chose for this weren't all directly known to their specific gods, but were more in some way linked to them. For Armadil and the Book of Lore I chose Larissa, due to when the player first encounters her, she gives thanks to Armadil, which also notably makes her the only known living human follower of Armadil, aside from the Guardians of Armadil. For Zamorak, I went with Lord Aquarius, due to his religious alignment, and him also being someone that, albeit a follower of Chaos, he's referred to as being undeniably noble, as well as being well liked by his men and respected by his enemies, which felt like a very fitting role for him to be able to imbue the unholy book. Saradomin was an easy one again, and that was to go and speak to Serenity in the White Knight Castle. Who better than the chap who sells you paintings and maps and can tell you about your family's heritage? Zaros was a fun one to work with, and I ended up going with Shura, a siren who can be found in the Sisterhood Sanctuary near the Nightmare fight. Being a siren, and the only other two known being the Whisperer and Pisiria, who are both notably Zerosians, it could suggest that at some point the sirens could have been aligned with Zaros during the Second and Third Age, and having knowledge of this could be an interesting way to link to her species' history. Guthix was easy, this one was Cake Mix in Tavali, and just as easy was Bandos, who else but General Warface. And imbuing would of course double the book's current stats, and wouldn't really put them in a place that would make them useful again, but it would bring them at least up to sort of a more nicer position for their stats. Again, a final thought would be a potential extra drop being the Book of the Gods, allowing all of them to be combined into a singular book. This would be pretty stupid, honestly, but it could be kind of interesting to think about. That covers what we had for now, and until I either see more of these proposals or have permission from some others that are already out there, I'll probably end up putting some more ideas myself out there at some point too, prior to the release, if I can get the time to. But if you enjoyed this little breakdown of some of the more popular suggestions we could find, then a like could be really appreciated, as this one's been in the works for a good while now, and hey, maybe even subscribe for more stuff like this in the future. Or if you're in need of guides, hey, I've got that covered too, and I'll have a bunch more of those coming out in the future too. Again, all the creators' details and socials will be down below in the description, and if you'd like to suggest any more for me to cover, then you can hit me up in the Discord with links to them. And there's an invite for that in the description down below too. But that'll do for now, and I'll see you all in the next one.